All right. How are you guys doing? Can you hear me okay?
I got you loud and clear. How can you hear me?
Perfect. Awesome. Well, we'll give it about a minute or so just for some other people who are jumping on, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Well, we might have a couple more people jump on, but we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining. My name is McKenna Collins, and I'm the technical recruiter with Qualled. So today we're going to be talking with Stone, and we'll kind of go into a little bit of an agenda that way you know what's going on here. So I'm going to start the info session, giving a background of what Launchpad Academy is, and then I'll introduce Stone. Is Hazlett correct?
Hazlett.
Hazlett. Okay, perfect. So then I'll go ahead and introduce Stone, and you'll hear directly from him. Figured it's a little bit better hearing from someone who's the expert in the industry, so I'll turn it over to him. And then finally, I'll finish, and you can have an opportunity to ask any questions, whether it's about Qualled or Launchpad Academy or the program. And then after that, we'll do a few closing remarks and send you on your way for the rest of the day. So, Launchpad Academy program, I would say it is considered a training, placement, and a mentorship program for account executive type roles. So, a lot of companies really want to hire account executives, but most companies are looking for individuals with anywhere from 3 to 7 years of experience. And to be quite honest, just a lot of veterans don't have that kind of experience. So as a result, this program was created to take veterans of all backgrounds and to create a foundation so that they can understand sales and high technology. So after you go through this 7-week program, we place you with one of our 150 plus partners who are looking to hire right out of our cohort. And then after that, once you've completed the program and you get that job, then we do like to follow up with you along with the company just to say, hey, how are you doing? How can we help you? We want to hear about your successes, but we also want to be there as a mentor to help you get to where you want to be, whether that's in your career or if you just have questions regarding the industry and things of that nature. So Stone was a combat controller for the United States Air Force. And he actually went through the Qualled program while he was transitioning out of the military back in January of 2017. He started out as an account executive with Converge One and then moved into venture technology as an account executive. From there, he worked his way up into the regional sales manager with Transec. And he's now the United States Army program and business development manager with Black Diamond Advanced Technology. So I'll kind of hand it over to you, Stone, for a minute or two just to kind of say hello and then to kind of give us a little bit better of an understanding of your background.
Yeah, sure. So first off, thanks for having me. I was just as excited, if not more excited, to be on here and talk to you guys again. So thanks for the introduction. I was a Air Force veteran for 8.5 years as a combat controller with the JTAC special duty. So I attached to soft teams and deployed the theaters and advised and consulted air-to-ground liaison in Afghanistan and Africa and other parts of the world. And then I transitioned with Qualled. 2017 in January, that's when it started. I got out in April and immediately went into a job as an account executive with Venture Technologies. And then as McKenna explained, I transitioned to a company called Transec, which is a professional services type company and selling of hardware in the data center. And then from there, transitioned to Black Diamond Advanced Technologies. And we are a communications and technology integrator within the DoD. We're a private sector industry type company, and that's where I'm at currently.
Very nice. Well, thank you for sharing that. So the first question is going to be a two-part question. So in your expertise, what does an account executive do, and what type of qualities does a successful account executive possess?
Sure. So, if you guys look up the true definition of an account executive, you get a lot of mixed answers. And from my experience, the overall goal and job of an account executive or an account manager or a business development manager is client acquisition. So finding that new customer base, right? Going after and expanding that business platform that your company's appointed you to do. Along with that, it's also taking care of existing customer base. So you might walk in to a new job, or you might have an account list where you have to take care of and maintain and constantly strategize with these client bases to not only expand your own company's business base, but also just taking care of that customer and advising them on how to leverage the funds that they have, the yearly funds that they have, and how to make their environment better and more efficient. A lot of the biggest skills, in my opinion, of an account executive is high communication skills. That's not just, making a phone call or making an email. It's articulating your thoughts and having them understand where you're coming from in a very pointed manner, very quickly. The people that you're working with are busy and they have a lot of responsibilities. And so getting your point across quickly and articulating that point is extremely important. The ability to see the big picture is another thing that I've learned the hard way, and thank the Lord I've learned that and now leveraging it. Is seeing the big picture. And what I mean by that is having the ability to stop, through a sales process, and having the ability to change and shift through your strategy at a moment's notice. If something isn't working or if something is working, having the ability to see that and have some good visibility on that. Another good thing for me and what I've learned is not to rush. You always want to get that big sale and you always want to, get the big numbers and all these things, but having the ability to take your time, trust the process, and work through those things. That's very important. The customer will recognize if you're trying to rush through something, and a lot of times you'll scare them away. So having the ability to relax and just trust the process is extremely important. And then also having the ability to leverage the solution that you're selling and having the ability to develop a technology roadmap for your customer. So not just the sale at which you're trying to, finish, but also seeing down the road and building a roadmap for your customer base is extremely important, and you'll see a lot of success through that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I think one thing that even we look for in potential candidates are in people who are driven, who have that high energy, like you were saying, who can communicate well, but who are also patient and who are adaptable. That's something that's very important that you kind of touched base on. So yes, I couldn't agree with you more on that. How would you say that TechQualled prepared you to reach your goal? And maybe talk through a few things that you were able to leverage on day one in your account executive role.
Yeah, sure. So this is a 3 to 4 part answer, in my opinion. So the first thing TechQualled did, and this is just the education of the tech market, right? So just a good understanding of what is tech sales, what is the tech market, what's the current status of the market, all those things. Also, the sales process. I honestly don't know if I would have been able to really grasp selling as a civilian in the tech market if I didn't go through a program like TechQualled, because the sales process is so important, especially in technology, unlike a lot of other verticals. Tech sales and understanding the sales process is extremely important. And then, setting the standard, TechQualled did, setting the standard to always be in education and learning mode. You're never good at what you do. Always have that understanding of you might be good currently, but always studying the market, because your customers are relying on you to do that. So TechQualled definitely set that standard for me to always keep my eyes out, and staying ahead of the game. And then your next question was, sorry.
I just kind of wanted
answered both of them.
Yeah, no, that was it. That was good. Perfect. So for the next one, what would you say has been one of the most rewarding parts of your job?
Oh, man. So before I started, I was mostly excited about making money. And then soon after that, once I got in and I started sitting down and meeting with customers, I think the most rewarding part of every single one of my days is taking care of the customer. And just completely, losing the overall sight of money. And I don't even think about that anymore. I just think about taking care of the customer. And it's truly it's one of the greatest gifts that was ever given to me that I didn't know was a gift until I got into sales. And it's just, I love waking up every day and taking even the phone calls where I'm getting chewed out by somebody. And even those are rewarding, and learning through those things. So I would say number one and the overarching is just taking care of the customer and the customer base.
Yeah, no, I've heard that several different times from all of our candidates, just saying how that has been one of the most rewarding things that they've really enjoyed. Like, in this type of position, you have to have that teachable spirit in order to learn and to grow, but it is one of the most rewarding jobs just because you do get to build those relationships. So that's great. Yep. What would you say, just to kind of turn the table, what would you say has been one of the challenges that you've had to overcome in this type of role?
Okay, so two things, and I think they're polar opposites, but they also go together. So the first one is, and I'm sure a lot of you are thinking this, or maybe not, and I learned this the hard way. When I was in the military, we're all given extreme amounts of responsibility, and a lot of those skills aren't immediately recognized when you get into these jobs. A lot of times they might know that you're a high-functioning human being, but the way that we communicate, the way that we address problems, sometimes can come across in I wouldn't say aggressive manner, but more so just matter of fact. And so that was, I think, the hardest part of not only just my transition, right, but in sales was really reconfiguring how to talk to people, and even with people that that work under me, or people that I work with, business partners, constituents, and customers, even when they're wrong and I know that I'm right, having the ability to calm down. And you're not in the military anymore, and a lot of times people don't understand how you're communicating. So that's and I'm still working on that. And all of you will work on that, hopefully, for the rest of your lives, because we still are good at communicating. You just have to constantly be working on sharpening that sword, and just knowing your audience. It's just so important. And then the second part of that in the actual job space is losing a deal. That's been extremely difficult, but it's also made me a lot better, and it's given me fuel to wake up every day to continue pushing and pushing and pushing. I'm in the DoD market, DoD and federal, and so a lot of times deals are lost as a part of failure in the acquisition stages or in contracting, or Congress decides that they're not going to give any more money to somebody. It can be extremely stressful, and having the gumption to wake up every day to do to continue pushing and finding hope has been difficult, but it's also been a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's great advice for just anyone in general, whether you go in the tech industry or not, just having that open communication and those communication skills is a great thing to have. What kind of growth or progression opportunities do you have as an account executive? And do you feel like TechQualled prepared you for those during your time in the program?
Yeah, sure. So currently, just to give some perspective here, currently I'm managing a $30+ million program within within the DoD, and then outside of that, currently managing a $5 million quota, and I've almost doubled that this year. Those are my current growth opportunities. In the past, in my previous job, I had the ability and the opportunity to manage an engineering staff and professional services mission set within the commercial market. And as far as TechWall goes, I mean, just giving me that confidence to do it. And kind of funny, when I graduated the TechWall program, I thought, okay, they just taught me the basic tools to enter into this new chapter. But then, I'm finding myself in a meeting with, some colonel, in Hawaii, and I'm like, oh, okay, there's another tool that I'm pulling out of the toolbox that TechWall gave me. So it's just a continuing process that, and just that confidence that TechWall gave me is definitely the overarching idea there. So.
Awesome. So kind of going back to, you had at the beginning of the call kind of talked a little bit about your first big sale. Can you expand on that just a little bit? What was your first big sale? How long did it take? Things like that. Just talk a little bit about the different aspects of that being an AE.
Sure. So actually my first big sale was a cold call. And I probably spent, this is my first position, and I probably spent a solid 4.5 months calling an account list on the 200+ just names, companies going down the list, and getting hung up on, and getting told no, or getting told I don't know what I'm talking about, or I don't talk to account managers, I don't talk to account executives, I only talk to engineers. And then I finally talked to somebody, nailed a meeting, and it was a hybrid storage solution, and it was a fairly large deal. And the process starting from the cold call to the meeting, and really sitting down and not talking over the customer, letting them talk, understanding their needs, and then from there going back, meeting with vendors. I thought one of the most difficult parts of that, especially as a reseller in the VAR market, is you have vendor relationships, right, with all these different solutions. They want a storage solution, and so I'm like, well, I just had beers with the Cisco guy 2 days ago, and he wants me to sell his hybrid solution. But then I'm also meeting with the Pure Storage guy, and all these different things. And so you're managing business relationships, and you're also trying to find the best solution for the customer, and that can get really tricky. And then from there, pricing, right? Now you have the ear of the customer, but now you're terrified of sticker shock and scaring them away with price. And so, really trying to find that happy medium in the VAR market. How much margin am I going to put on this? Learning that not to make a bunch of money on margin right away, because the whole point of getting a new customer is to have them be the same customer for you in 5 to 10 years. So not being greedy about making that margin, and then waiting for the email response back after the initial quote was sent. That was probably the most stressful part of that, because my entire office was basically knew that I was close to selling this solution, and so that waiting process, it probably took I think it took 2 weeks for him to respond to me, and I thought the deal was lost. And then I get an email back, and there was no haggling back and forth. It was just a signed quote, and then the whole game started. And then I went into project manager mode, which a lot of you guys and gals will see that you're going to be like a pseudo project manager. And so meeting with the engineering staff and starting to talk about integration of the solution and all these things. And so that's when things get fun. And then seeing that commission check hit your bank account net 30 after the product ships is the best part of the whole thing. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. I do have a follow-up question with your response. So at the beginning you said, you do a lot of cold calling and you get a lot of no's and just not interested. I don't want to talk to you. how did you personally push through that? And what made you keep going in order to, not take that personally and just keep going? How did you go about doing that?
It's honestly, I just thought one call at a time, and I didn't use the last call or a hang up as a thorn. It's kind of like, and I think a lot of you that are either on this call or are going to listen to this call in the military, going through training or going through a tough time in the military, living life 5 minutes at a time or even 2 minutes at a time. I'm going to get through this next 2 minutes of my life, and I'm going to complete this task, and I'm going to move forward. So doing all those cold calls and having a zero customer base where I'm not making any commission, I have to establish my entire account list. So getting hung up on 30 times in a row in 2 hours can be stressful, but having the ability to just turn your brain off, make the phone call. If you get a no, go stand up, pour a cup of coffee, go get a bottle of water, go bother one of your coworkers in the office over and talk about football or whatever, and then get back in there and get back in the fight and get going. So that's what I would say. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it definitely does. Thanks for sharing that. So let's talk money. Yeah. I get asked pretty frequently, what does compensation look like for individuals who are going into the tech industry? Obviously, it's going to look different than people who are in the military just because it's you get paid every 2 weeks. This is a set amount. So can you just kind of walk through, I know it's going to depend on the commission structure of the company, but can you just kind of walk through a little bit what that would look like starting out as an account executive and then working your way up?
Sure. Yeah. So starting out, especially, a lot of the people going through the Tech Qualled program are obviously JMOs. And so you have a nice salary, right? And you're working up into the, 60s and 70s, 70K range and even up from there, special operations guys. And so it's a comfortable salary, right? And when you go into your first job into tech sales, in terms of salary, I've seen everything from 45K all the way up through 6 figures, depending on what the company needs and wants and all that good stuff. But in terms of compensation, you want me to answer like the commission structures and all that good stuff, or in salary as well on top of that, matching salary?
Just something that you've seen in your time in this industry and just trends in the past couple years.
Sure. So I think a lot of it is a ramp up. So, a good example, when you get your first job as an account manager or account executive, you might have an account list, but you're going to be working off a salary for the first, few months, unless you walk right into a deal and that deal has the ability to generate commission. You're going to be sitting on a salary, and I really can't answer to what you're going to make in salary, but when I exited, I was making about 50 a year, and then it just kind of built up from there over time. Once you build up your customer base, depending on the vertical you're working in, whether it's data center or software or a mixture of the two, or professional services, where you're selling the services of the engineers to come in and help tech environments out. Once you establish that baseline, you start making the commission on top of that. I've seen people where they're making 10 to 15K a year in commission. And that's kind of where I was at the first year and a half. And now I'm looking now at a pretty good salary in tech sales. And now that my quota is in the $5 million range, that's also giving me the ability to make commissions in a more high amount, where right now I'm making 1% of my deals. And so I'm looking at possible commission checks in the 100K plus range. And even above that, when you start selling multi-million-dollar solutions to companies, the money can get pretty ridiculous, and it's surprising. So that's one reason to stick with it. and work at it, because it's not going to take years. It'll take a couple years to build that base, but you'll be happy you stuck with it.
Yeah. And then my last question for you, what recommendations do you have for either veterans transitioning out of the military and thinking about a career in tech sales, or someone who is just transitioning from their current role who are also thinking about getting into this type position?
Yeah, no. So I actually, before I was even going to hop on this webinar, I actually thought about that, because I've been helping people here and there, buddies that, are thinking about getting out. And, a lot of the things that I see just in the veteran base in general, people that are about to be veterans, is they're looking for this dream job. They're looking for the perfect job. I'm going to get the perfect job, and then that's going to be it when I leave the military. And that's a great goal to have, but the goal, in my opinion, that you need to have is to transition. I think transitioning out of the military is arguably the most important part of your life, right behind raising your right hand to serve your country and to give your life for your country. So transitioning out of the military is a volatile time, and it can be bumpy. And so my advice to you all is to just get that job and get into it, and then from there you'll figure it out. But don't wait. Transition. Your focus is that first 6 months when you get out. That's your target. Get out of the military, have a job, have a paycheck, and move forward from there. And the next part of that is, if you do shift into tech sales, is to educate yourself and study, and then study some more, and then keep studying. Your customers are relying on you to do that, and it's extremely important.
Yeah, that's great. And I can definitely relate to you with transitioning and, finding something that you love. My husband was in the Navy, so I walked with him during that whole process. And like you said, the bumps, the challenges, but also through that, you can find a successful career as long as you're looking towards that goal. And like you said earlier, taking it just one step at a time. So that's great advice. Now I'm going to open it up to the audience. If any of you guys have any questions, feel free to, you can show your video if you want, or if you just want to do sound, you're more than welcome to do that. Any questions? All right, Forrest has a question. Go ahead, Forrest.
Hey, can you hear me, McKenna?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. Sorry, I was dealing with a Wi-Fi issue here, but happy to be on. Thanks for putting this on. This is a really cool webinar. And Stone, great story, man. I'm a Air Force MC-130J pilot, so fellow Air Commando, and I love to see the inspiring stories. And I appreciate you making the time to do this. I know the time is money, especially in your career field. So this is hugely impactful. And my question to you would be, through the Tech Qualled, I saw that you had 3 different roles in 3 years. What's the cost benefit? Because I understand that there could be some transition cost, but there could also be some benefits of like upskilling and trading up and getting into more refined roles. Could you talk a little bit about that?
So so basically your question is, I kind of missed the first part of it. It was a little bit muffled. So you're asking what the process looked like building up through different roles and more responsibility. Is that your question?
Yeah, I think specifically out of Tech Qualled, you spent a year basically at one company, and then it looks like basically another company per year. And I understand that can be a significant positive in that you can kind of leapfrog maybe roles and responsibilities as opposed to staying in one company and being on a pretty linear growth trajectory. So I'm just curious what the cost benefit on deciding to stay with a company in a particular role versus going with another company and potentially another skill set.
No, okay, yeah, no, that's actually a great question, and it's a healthy balance, honestly, for us. When I left my first gig, before that, thankfully, I had the mentorship of not only Rebecca was her name, when she was helping us out with resumes. One of the things that she said or no, I'm sorry, Katie Goosen. Sorry, that's her, Katie. She said, your resume is extremely important, but also hiring officials will look at the amount of time you spend at that company. And if it looks like you're jumping from one job to another job to another job between 8 and 12 months, and there's really
Are you there? Sorry about that. I'm not sure
Hey,
what
McKenna, this is Forrest again. I'm back up to it. Was that me?
No, it wasn't. I'm so sorry. I am not sure what happened. Let's see if he jumps back on. All right, I just reached back out to him. Sorry about that, guys. All right, for those of you who are jumping back on, I apologize about that. I'm reaching out to Stone again to get him back on here to answer Forrest's questions. Just 1 second. Sorry about that, Stone. We're not quite sure what happened. Some are jumping back on. Oh, we can't hear you. We can't hear you, Stone. Okay. Thank you all for being patient.
okay.
Perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right. Okay.
Sorry about, do you remember his question? Sorry about that.
It's okay. So yeah, building up through different jobs and what's the benefit of jumping to the next job was Forrest's question. So there's a healthy balance, like I was saying, and so you have to be sure to not necessarily always chase the money. Okay, there's a healthy balance between, do I stay in this job to get more experience and wait a little bit, or do I move on to the next thing? And that's what you have to figure out as you navigate that. I know that's a really generalized answer to that part, but my advice to you in terms of benefits of moving to the next job for money, never ever accept, in my opinion, never accept a drop in salary from moving to another job, or never accept a drop in compensation, right? Sometimes you might get a lower salary, but you know that you're going into a job where you're probably going to sell a lot and you're going to make a lot in commission, and that's going to be your overall pay. Reviewing all those things is really important. If you feel like you have stopped growing in your current situation, and there's so many different factors that go into that on why you would leave one job to move to the next. And looking at those things, right? Am I growing? Am I still learning? Am I good in this current vertical? All those different things, and letting that guide you to finding a new position. Another thing too is don't ever necessarily decline talking to somebody. If somebody wants to talk to you about your experience in what you're doing at another company or anything like that, it's not, you're not wrong to talk to somebody, to understand what's out there and what's going on. With that being said, you're going to be extremely busy in your current job, and you might not have time to talk to people all the time. But always keep yourself open to new opportunities. Does that answer your question for us?
Yeah, it does. I appreciate it. Thanks for the thoughtful answer.
Yep. Yeah, of course.
Appreciate it.
All right. Are there any other questions? No? All right. Well, thank you again, Stone. I really appreciate you taking time to participate. And yeah, thank you all for joining in. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I believe all of you have my contact information, but if you don't, I can send it to you after this info session. And then other than that, I hope you all have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you.